Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Okay. Wait, what? Yeah. Spinal Snake video. Let's start with this one. It's a fucking loop.
Earth had a different king. For about 50 million years, the entire planet was basically run by bugs. And these weren't the bugs that you can just step on. We're talking dragonflies with 2-foot wingspans, 8-foot millipedes, 2-foot scorpions, and just absolutely massive insects everywhere. And somehow I find that nobody ever mentions this. So I decided to look deep and really uncover just what life.
Yeah, I don't lie to you. Off rip, I already made up my mind, bro. I'd rather deal with the dinosaurs than these, bro. Hold on, what was that? A millipede, a centipede. What's the difference between those, bro? A millipede and a centipede. Hold on, what?
2-foot wingspans, 8-foot millipedes,
Bro, 8 feet. 8 feet. Like, what's 8 feet? Hold on. Bro, what? 8 feet. Okay. Hold on. What the fuck is... Why is my... Hold on. My keyboard's not working. Okay. Bro. Absolutely. 2.4 meters. Alright. Nah. That's so ass, bro. Nah.
foot scorpions,
2 feet
just
scorpions.
absolutely massive insects everywhere. And somehow I find that nobody ever mentions this. So I decided to look deep and really uncover just what life was like back then. So you're probably wondering how bugs got that big in the first place. And the answer is Earth was basically on a different setting back then. This was the Carboniferous period, about 300
Bro, just look at that. Bro, look at this. Oh my god. Were humans even there? The Carboniferous period. Were humans even there? If they were, bro. Oh shit. Skill diff is crazy. And the fear factor too. Like, bro. Nah.
years ago. And I need you to understand, when I say things are different, I don't mean it was just warmer or there were different plants. The actual air that you would be breathing was different. The atmosphere back then had somewhere between 30 and 35% oxygen. Right now today we're sitting at around 21%. So the Carboniferous air had like 50% more oxygen than what we are breathing today. The air was thick with it. You could probably run a marathon and not even get winded, assuming you didn't get eaten by a giant scorpion first. And this oxygen thing is the main reason bugs got huge, because insects don't have...
Bro, insects are bothering me now. Supersized ones will... Bro, I don't know. Ew. Like, bro.
lungs. They breathe through this system of tubes called tracheae that run through their bodies. It's basically just a bunch of tiny airways that let oxygen seep into their tissues, which works fine when you're a normal sized bug. But there's a limit to how deep oxygen can go through those tubes. So under normal conditions, insects can't get past a certain size because their insides would just suffocate. But when you've got 35% oxygen in the air, suddenly those tubes work at much bigger
Oh my
size.
god, look at this. Bro, it's just bothering me. I'm sorry. Like, look at it. Holy shit, dude. I don't know. There's something about an insect with, like, I don't know, bro. Too much legs. Like, why do you need so much legs? Your mobility is ass too. Like, bro. Ew.
The oxygen can reach deeper into the body, so bugs could grow larger and still breathe fine. It's not complicated science. It's just more oxygen means bigger bugs can survive. That's it. Now, the planet itself looked completely wrong too. The continents were in the middle of forming this supercontinent called Pangaea, so everything was slowly smushing together.
Bro, the continents separating was probably one of the best things to ever happened, you know. After, you know, the the meteorite hit. This was, bro, thank God. It killed most of the stuff that would kill us now, bro. Thank God, bro. Like, oh my God.
Together. North America and Europe were basically touching. South America was connected to Africa. It was a mess. And then to the west of all of this, there was this absolutely massive ocean called Panthalassa, which was like twice the size of the Pacific Ocean today. It was just an enormous body of water covering most of the planet. But the part that matters for the bugs is the land near the equator, because that's where things got really weird.
Ew. What is this, bro? Hey, yo. Ew. A salamander, crocodile or something? What is this, bro?
The equator was covered in these swamp forests that went on forever. And I don't mean normal
An amphibian reptile, bro. Like,
swamp forests. I mean these bizarre, humid swamps full of plants that don't even exist anymore. The main trees were these things called scale trees, which sounds made up, but it's not. They were basically giant club mosses, which today are tiny ground plants, but back then they grew to like 100 feet tall. They had these thick trunks covered in diamond patterned bark, and they would just tower over everything. And then you had tree ferns, which are still around today, but these ones were huge. Plus these giant horsetail plants called calamites. Everything was big and green and wet. The ground was covered in dead plant material because there wasn't much around that could break down wood properly yet. Fungi were still figuring out how to digest lignin, which is the tough stuff in wood. So dead trees would just pile up. All of this dead plant matter eventually got buried and compressed and turned into coal. That's where the name Carboniferous comes from, carbon bearing, because this period created most of the coal that we dig up today. So every time you hear about a coal mine, you're basically hearing about a Carboniferous swamp forest that got fossilized. The whole place was humid and hot and stagnant. There was standing water everywhere. The climate was tropical across most of the landmass near the equator. It was perfect for things that needed moisture to survive, which includes most bugs.
What the hell is that? A black widow centipede? Like, bro, look at this. Oh my God, bro. It must have been a nightmare, bro. Again, I'd rather deal with the dinosaurs than this, bro. Ew. Like the thought of a centipede crawling on me, like so much legs just walking on me at the same time. Ew, bro.
Because their exoskeletons can be a problem in dry conditions. But in a humid swamp forest, they could get as big as they wanted and not worry about drying out. And there was so much food, just endless amounts of rotting plants and fresh plants and plant debris everywhere. So if you were something that ate dead leaves, you were set. And if you were something that ate things that ate dead leaves, you were also set. The whole ecosystem was running on this massive production of plant material that just kept piling up.
Oh, brother,
so when you
this
put it all
guy's
together,
cooked.
you've got high oxygen, humid.
Oh,
that just
yo.
kept-
Nah, he's cooked. But look at him, bro. Wait, who's hunting who here? I mean, the size difference is, I mean, just look at that. It's towering over this thing. So he's probably getting hunted here. So
piling up. So when you put it all together, you've got high oxygen, humid tropical swamps, tons of food, and not much competition. It's basically perfect conditions for bugs to take over, which they did.
This is the fearsome Corgosaurus Rex. His name is Flapjack. And if you don't like and subscribe, he literally is going to eat you. Look at his face. This is a fearsome apex predator from the prehistoric period. You don't want to mess with him.
The planet being weird didn't mean much if nothing was living there, though.
hold on, bro. Hold on, bro. Hold on. I got you, bro.
And trust me, things were living there. Let's start with the one that gets brought up the most because it is genuinely unsettling. Meganeura. This was a dragonfly, or technically it was related to dragonflies, but close enough. It had a wingspan of about 2 feet. Some of its relatives got even bigger, like Meganeuropsis, which hit closer to 2.5 feet, which is the size of a hawk. Yes, this is a predatory insect the size of a hawk that was just flying around. You know how everyone always says that
No. Nah. Wait, were ants huge? Because if ants were huge, again, I'd rather deal with the dinosaurs than those, bro.
Dragonflies are so great because they eat mosquitoes and they help us out. Well, what you don't realize is that dragonflies are often apex predators in the insect world. And these giant dragonflies, yeah, these things were also apex predators. They ruled the skies because there was nothing else up there to challenge them. No birds existed yet, no bats, no flying reptiles. The sky was just completely empty except for insects. So Meganeura could fly wherever it wanted and grab whatever it wanted. It had these big compound eyes for tracking movement, and its legs were covered in spines for catching prey mid-flight. It would just snatch other insects out of the air and eat them. Scientists think it probably went after anything smaller than itself, which was most things. There's even some debate about whether it could take down small amphibians if it caught them on a branch or something, which is crazy to think about. Now, Meganeura gets all the attention, but it wasn't alone up there. There were these other bugs called Paleodictyoptera, which had 6 wings. 6. They evolved these extra little wing flaps on their thorax for reasons that aren't totally clear yet. Maybe for stability, maybe just because they could. These things could get wingspans of like 1.5 feet, and they probably fed on plant sap, so they were basically giant prehistoric cicadas with too many wings. And then obviously you had cockroaches, because cockroaches have been around for over 300 million years, which is longer than almost everything else. Some of the Carboniferous, obviously you had cockroaches, because cockroaches have...
Bro, cockroaches were that big? Oh nah. I mean, they're hard to kill now. Then, shit. Bro, can't even step on it. Like, oh fuck.
Been around for over 300 million years, which is longer than almost everything else. Some of the Carboniferous ones got to be several inches long, which doesn't sound that impressive until you remember that's several inches of cockroach just walking around in the open because nothing was hunting them efficiently yet. The flying insects weren't even the most ridiculous creatures around. On the ground you had Arthropleura. This was a millipede, except it grew to 8 feet long, and some fossils suggest it might have gotten even bigger. It was segmented and armored and had dozens of legs, and it just slowly crawled through the forest eating dead plant material. It was harmless though, probably. But can you imagine stepping over a log and seeing an 8-foot millipede on the other side? I would leave. I would just leave the entire time period. Scientists think that it was a detrivore, which means it ate rotting leaves and wood and whatever else was decomposing on the forest floor, which there was a lot of, so it had plenty to eat, and because it was so big and armored, nothing really messed with it. The early amphibians and reptiles that existed weren't equipped to take down something that
I
size.
knew it, bro. I knew it. There's no way you were the hunter here, bro. Look at you, bro. Oh my god, bro.
So Arthropleura
Oh god, no. Oh no. Bro, run, man. Like,
just kind of won the forest floor by being too big to bother.
look at this nigga, bro. He's like, yeah. Nah, he's cooked. Yeah, nah, he's cooked.
And then, because apparently this wasn't enough, you had Pulmonoscorpius, a scorpion that was 2 feet long. It had the pincers, the tail, the stinger, all of it. Fossils show it had pretty good eyesight too, which suggests it hunted during the day. Most scorpions today are nocturnal, but this one didn't need to hide. Its pincers weren't super thick, which means it probably relied more on venom than crushing strength, and some researchers think it could have had pretty potent venom based on the ratio of its tail size to its claw size. So it would grab something, sting it, and let the venom do the work, and it definitely could have hunted small amphibians or reptiles. There just
Oh my
wasn't much
god, bro. Amphibians were skill diffed. Like, have amphibians ever won, bro? Like, at anything? Like, they've never had a period where they were like top of the food chain. They're always getting skill diffed. Damn. Damn, bro. I feel bad, my nigga. I don't.
around that could stop it. So to recap, you've got hawk-sized dragonflies in the air. 8-foot millipedes on the ground, and 2-foot venomous scorpions wandering around in broad daylight.
Bruh.
And somehow, all of this worked as an actual functioning ecosystem. Which brings up the question of how any of this was allowed to happen in the first place.
Like, bruh.
Because obviously, something had to make this possible. You don't just accidentally get 8-foot millipedes and 2-foot dragonflies without very specific conditions lining up. And it really comes down to
Nah, this dude's hiding, bro. Look at him. Like, he's like, oh shit. Where is he going? I hope he doesn't see me. Face ass. Like, bro. Nah.
dragonflies without very specific conditions lining up. And it really comes down to 3 things that all happened at the same time. First, the oxygen. I mentioned this earlier, but it's worth going into because it's the main reason this worked. Again, the insects breathe through these tubes, there's no lungs involved, and the tubes just run over their body and oxygen kind of diffuses into their tissues through them. It's passive, there's no pumping happening. And you know the rest. More oxygen means bigger bugs. The second thing, and this is big, is that there was nothing hunting them. In fact, the skies were completely empty except for insects. There was no birds, no bats, and flying reptiles wouldn't show up for another like 80 million years. So if you were a flying insect, you could just do whatever you wanted up there. There was no evolutionary pressure to stay small and maneuverable to avoid getting eaten by something faster. You could get big and still be fine. And on the ground, the predators that existed weren't that impressive yet. You had some amphibians, sure, but most of them were either small or they stayed in the water. The ones that came onto land were still figuring out how to move around effectively. They weren't exactly apex predators. Early reptiles existed too, but
Were they ever apex predators, bro? I don't think so, bro. Amphibians are so... I don't know.
they were tiny. Palm size, in fact. They were eating insects, but they were going after the tiny ones. A 2-foot scorpion wasn't worried about a 4-inch lizard. That is not a threat. So insects and other arthropods had this massive advantage where they'd evolved to handle the land environment earlier than most vertebrates. And then they just got huge because nothing was stopping them. And here's something funny. There's this theory that giant insects stayed dominant right up until birds evolved. And then birds showed up and suddenly insect sizes drop off because birds are really good at eating insects. They're fast, they can maneuver well, and they're actively hunting during the day. So even later, when oxygen levels went back up during the Jurassic, insects didn't get giant again because birds were around by then and they would just eat anything that got too big. Which means that the only reason we had giant insects in the first place is because the skies were empty and they got there first. If anything had evolved flight earlier, this probably wouldn't have happened. And third, and maybe most importantly, there was just absurd amounts of food everywhere. Those swamp forests were...
Damn. It's crazy because humans are on top of the food chain. We eat anything, bro. Maybe it's because of our intelligence, but look. Humans eat birds, and birds eat insects, and insects, I don't know what the hell they're eating. Like, bro, it's a functional relationship. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good
producing
relationship.
plant material non-stop. Dead leaves, dead trees, dead everything just piling up. And because decomposers were still pretty primitive, it would just sit there. So if you were something that ate dead plants, you had almost unlimited food. You could eat as much as you wanted and get as big as your biology allowed. And then if you were a predator that ate the things that ate the dead plants, you also had unlimited food. Because the plant eaters were everywhere and they were huge and easy to catch. It was just this perfect setup where every level of the food chain had more resources than it needed. So everything could grow to large sizes without worrying about starving. A giant millipede could lumber around slowly eating rotten wood, and it didn't matter that it was slow because there was rotting wood everywhere and nothing was hunting it anyways. Now obviously these 3 things didn't work independently. It was the combination that mattered. High oxygen meant bugs could be big. No predators meant they didn't need to stay small, and lots of food meant that they could sustain that size. Take away one of those and the whole thing is gonna fall apart, which is exactly what happened later, but we'll get to that. For now, just understand that for 50 or 60
For society to fall apart, for us, take away chickens. You know, because they have eggs, bro. We need eggs. Yeah, take away chickens and corn. Like maize, yeah, just take away chicken and corn. What cooked? I don't know.
50 million years, Earth's land and air were dominated by arthropods because the conditions were perfect for them and nothing else had figured out how to compete yet. Now, the real question is what these things actually did all day. Because having giant bugs is one thing, but they still need to eat and get eaten and reproduce and all of that. The food chain that existed back then was genuinely weird compared to what we're used to. At the bottom, you had the plants, the scale trees, and the ferns, and all of that. They're doing photosynthesis, making energy from sunlight, producing leaves and spores and wood. Standard plant stuff, you know the deal. And then they would die and fall over and just sit there decomposing very slowly. And then you had the decomposers and herbivores, things like Arthropleura, the giant millipede just slowly crawling around eating dead plant material. Smaller millipedes and early insects doing the same thing, and some insects were probably eating living plants too, like those six-winged Paleodictyroptera that fed on sap. So they would poke a hole in a tree and just drink from it all day. And then above that, you had the predators, which is where things get interesting because the predators were also mostly insects and arthropods. Meganeura, the giant dragonfly, was catching and eating other flying insects. It was the top apex aerial predator. Anything smaller than it in the air was potential food, and there's some evidence it might have grabbed small amphibians or early reptiles if it found them sitting on branches. It had the size and the hunting tools to do it. On the ground, you had Pulmonoscorpius, the 2-foot scorpion we talked about, hunting whatever it could catch, probably other large insects, possibly small vertebrates. It had venom, it had good eyesight, and it could move relatively fast. It was doing well for itself. And then you had smaller predators too, because not everything was giant. There were regular-sized carnivorous beetles and early wasps and all sorts of other hunters going after the small prey. So the predator levels were split up by size.
A spider. Fuck. Oh my god, bro. Oh my god. No. Oh god, no. Bro, if I'm camping and I see, well, I'm in Australia. Fuck. Okay.
Small predators eating small prey and big predators eating big prey. But here's what's weird. In modern ecosystems, the top predators are basically always vertebrates. Lions, sharks, eagles, invertebrates fill in the smaller roles. But in the Carboniferous, the top predators on land and in the air were insects and arachnids. Vertebrates were there, but they were the supporting characters. And there were definitely some large amphibians in the water. Things like Aegirus, which could get to 12 or 15 feet long, but they stayed in the swamps and rivers. They weren't dominating the forest floor or the air. So you had this split where water was vertebrate territory and land was arthropod territory. And it worked. The ecosystem was stable for millions of years. The plants made energy, the herbivores ate the plants, and the predators ate the herbivores, and everything balanced out. You'd have Meganeura patrolling above the canopy, Pulmonoscorpius watering the forest floor, and Arthropleura cleaning up dead material, and smaller insects filling in every niche in between. The whole thing ran smoothly because everyone had a role and there was enough resources to go around. The humidity stayed high so nothing dried out. The temperature stayed warm so everything could stay active year-round. Food was constantly available because plants grew non-stop and the decomposition was so slow. It's actually impressive that bugs managed to run an entire ecosystem for that long. Most people don't think of insects as ecosystem engineers, but back then they were. They were the dominant force shaping how energy moved through the environment. And one thing you have to remember is that this went on for a really long time. We're not talking about a brief moment in history. Giant insects dominated for over 50 million years. For context, dinosaurs have been extinct for 65 million years. So the age of giant bugs lasted almost as long as the entire time since dinosaurs disappeared. But like I said earlier, stability only lasts until something changes. And around 305 million years ago, things started changing fast. What changed was everything, all at once in the worst possible way. The first problem, the oxygen started dropping. Remember how I said the air had 35% oxygen? Well, that didn't last. By the time you get to the late Permian, which is the period after the Carboniferous, oxygen levels had crashed back down to around 21%.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, bro. I'd rather deal with this than all of that, bro. Like, this is all light work, bro. Oh my god, look at this. Look at this, bro. Look at bro's mouth. Oh my god. Ew. Like, what is he gonna do to me, bro? Like, And look at this dude. Oh my god, but what are these? These builds are crazy. Are these even accurate, bro? They probably are. I don't wanna lie to you. And how is bro flying? Is he gliding or flying? Cause there's no way he's flapping his arms, bro. Like he doesn't. Okay, hold on. We don't know, bro. And this is crazy. There's no way this. What is this, bro? This is immediately a, I don't know, like a mobility div. Like, oh my god.
Same as today. And for insects that had spent millions of years evolving to be huge because they could, this was catastrophic. Their entire respiratory system was built for high oxygen. Those tracheal tubes worked great when oxygen was abundant, but now oxygen couldn't diffuse deep enough into their bodies anymore. The big ones couldn't get enough air into their tissues, so
died.
they suffocated. Not all at once, obviously, but over generations. The giant insects that needed high oxygen to survive just died out. They couldn't reproduce fast enough to adapt. Their bodies were too specialized for a world that didn't exist anymore. And the ones that did survive were the smaller individuals, the ones whose bodies didn't need as much oxygen, so insect sizes dropped.
Bro,
the thing that made
bro,
giant
bro,
insects'
this
bodies
thing-
didn't need as
hold
much
on.
oxygen, so
Bro, I feel like everyone has seen this. Maybe in their house, or I don't know. This thing is everywhere. Holy shit. What is this, bro?
insect sizes dropped. The thing that made giant insects possible, the high oxygen, eventually went away and killed them
Bro, it just makes me itch, bro. Oh my god, hold on.
off. They were completely dependent on it, and then it just disappeared. Now you might be wondering what caused the oxygen to drop, and the answer is the forests. The same forests that created the high oxygen in the first place. Those massive coal swamp forests were pulling carbon dioxide out of the air and pumping out oxygen through photosynthesis. But they were also burying huge amounts of carbon in the ground as dead plant material. And that carbon wasn't getting released back into the atmosphere because nothing could break down the wood fast enough. So carbon got locked away underground and oxygen built up. But then fungi evolved, specifically white rot fungi, which could digest lignin. That's the tough material in wood that makes it hard to decompose. Once fungi figured out how to break that down, dead wood started rotting properly. So carbon that used to get buried started getting released back into the air as carbon dioxide, and the balance shifted. Less oxygen, more carbon dioxide. Add to that the fact that the forests themselves were dying, which brings us to problem 2. Around 305 million years ago, the climate shifted. It got cooler and drier. Scientists call this the Carboniferous rainforest collapse, which is a very straightforward name for once. The rainforests did indeed collapse. What happened was glaciers formed at the South Pole. This locked up water and dropped sea levels. And when sea levels drop, climates get drier because there's less water evaporating into the air. So those humid tropical swamps that covered the equator started drying out. Trees died, and the continuous forest broke up into fragments with dry areas in between. And for species that needed those swamps to survive, this was an extinction level event. Amphibians got hit hard because they needed moisture to keep their skin wet and to lay their eggs. A lot of amphibian species went extinct or got pushed into small pockets where water still existed. Giant insects had the same problem. Things like Arthropleura, that 8-foot millipede, needed humid environments. It couldn't handle dry conditions. Its exoskeleton would lose moisture, it wouldn't be able to move properly, and it would die. So when the swamps dried up, it had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
There's fossil evidence that Arthropleura survived for a little while into the early Permian in some wetter areas, but eventually those dried
Whoa. 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 Nah. What the fuck is this, bro? Nah, for real though. What is this? And what are they eating? Holy shit, brother. When was this? Nah. Oh, nah. Oh, no.
up too, and it went completely extinct. It ruled the forest floor for millions of years, and then its habitat just vanished. And problem 3, reptiles showed up and started getting good at being predators. And this
Thanks.
might have been the worst one. Amphibians were declining because of the dry
Oh, shit. Yo, look at bro's teeth. What the fuck?
climate, but reptiles were built to handle it. They had waterproof skin and hard-shelled eggs that didn't need to be laid in water. So while amphibians were dying off, reptiles were thriving and spreading everywhere.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. Amphibians never win. Like, what is going on? They've never been top of the food chain. Not once, bro. They've never run shit like, bro. Like, that's so ass. We're frogs now. Like, bro.
And they were hungry. Early reptiles were small, but by the Permian, you started seeing larger species. Predatory reptiles that can move fast and hunt effectively, and they were way better at it than amphibians had ever been. They had better jaw strength, better mobility, and they didn't need to stay near water.
They
So
looked
suddenly,
cooler,
giant
too. Yeah.
insects had actual predators to deal with. A 2-foot scorpion
What the... Bro, this is unnecessary, bro. What the hell? I doubt this will move fast. Well, mobility. I doubt it has, you know, good mobility. Like, I'll just zigzag this shit, bro. Like, I'll just move around. It's probably gonna get tired. But look at those muscles, though. Damn. I don't know, man.
might have been safe from a small amphibian, but a 3-foot carnivorous reptile could take it down, and something like Meganeria flying around slowly because it was so big would have been easy prey for anything that could jump or climb well. Plus, you had synapsids evolving, which were those proto-mammal reptile things. Some of them got really large. By the mid-Permian, you had predators reaching 10 or 12 feet long. At that point, no arthropod was safe. Even Arthropleura would have been on the menu. So insects lost their monopoly on being scary. Vertebrates took over the top predator role.
Well, fear factor is still there, bro. The fear factor is still there. I don't wanna lie to you. Sure, it's ass that they were big, but even now, bro, I don't know. I just don't like it. What is this, bro? And secondly, what the fuck is this, bro? Its face looks like, bro, it looks like concrete, bro. Like, what is this?
And pushed arthropods back down to smaller niches.
What is this build, bro? I don't know. This thing's bothering me. Hold on. Oh shit, you can't see it. Hold on. What? Wait. Hold on, bro. Look at this. What is this, bro? Like, bro.
And once that happened, there was no coming back. Even later, when oxygen levels rose again during the Jurassic period, insects didn't get giant again because birds had evolved by then and they just eat anything that got too large. The age of giant bugs ended because the planet changed and better predators showed up. No dramatic meteor strike, just slow environmental shifts and competition from new animals that were better suited for the changing world. And then, just to really finish things,
The meteor hitting was the best thing to happen to Earth, bro. One of the best, bro. It helped. Thank God. Holy shit.
off, the Permian period ended with the biggest mass extinction in Earth's.
Loki, we need a second one. I don't know. I don't like how things are looking, bro. Like, we're discovering more shit. Like, oh my God. Maybe it's always been there. Fuck, bro. Nah, I'm not feeling this, bro. I think we need a second one. I don't wanna lie to you.
History. Permian Triassic extinction happened
What the hell is this, bro? What is that? There's no way this is functional. No, bro. I refuse to believe this. What is this, bro? How do you even chew, my nigga? Like, what is this? What is this build? What was it hunting? What shark is this?
around 252 million years ago. There were massive volcanic eruptions in Siberia. 200
What the fuck? Nah, free eats, bro. Nah, he's cooked. What the fuck, bro? Look at this. It's that thing again.
152 million years ago. There were massive volcanic eruptions in Siberia. The climate went haywire and oceans lost oxygen. About 70% of land species went extinct, 90% of ocean species too. Any giant arthropods that had somehow managed to hang on until that point got wiped
Yeah. Rightfully so, bro. What the fuck? Like,
out. And when life recovered after the extinction, the world was different. It was hotter, drier, and full of new reptiles and early dinosaurs that would go on to dominate for the next
whoa, whoa, brother. What the fuck? Look at this. Holy shit, bro. Look at this face, man. Nigga. Like, yeah, this looks cool. This looks cool. It looks like a snapping turtle. You know? This looks like a rat. What is he doing here, bro?
180 million years. Insects still did fine. They are resilient. Have you ever tried to kill a cockroach? It's pretty damn hard, but they stayed
Bro.
small. The giant forms never came back. Here's what you need to understand about this whole thing though. Giant insects dominated Earth for over 50 million years. That is not a short time. That is longer than the entire age of mammals has been so far. Humans have only been around for like 300,000 years, a million if you really consider early ancestors. Civilization has existed for maybe like 10,000. 50 million years is almost an incomprehensible amount of time.
Humans have been here for 1,000,000 years. Oh shit. Bruh. Okay.
And during all of that, bugs were in charge. They were the apex predators.
Oh, brother. Another amphibian. You know, bro, at this point, I'm thinking like amphibians were like, I don't know, free eats or something. Like, they were getting bullied, bro.
Land and in the air. They shaped how ecosystems functioned, and they were the dominant form of complex life on the planet, which is something nobody talks about. Everybody knows about the dinosaurs.
Facts.
Everyone knows about the Ice Age and mammoths, but the age of giant insects gets
Just hairy elephants, bro.
skipped over like it didn't happen. And it's one of the most important periods in Earth's history because it shows how different the planet can be under different atmospheric conditions. If oxygen levels went back up to 35% today, we wouldn't get giant insects again. Because birds exist now, mammals exist, hell, we would probably eat them. They wouldn't be able to evolve into large sizes because they would get hunted before they could establish themselves. The window for giant bugs is long gone, which means the Carboniferous was the one and only time this could have happened. It required very specific conditions that came together once and that will probably never line up again. High oxygen, no flying vertebrates, abundant food, and a humid climate, all at the same time. And when you look at modern insects, you're seeing the descendants of those giants. Dragonflies today max out at like 7 inches of wingspan. That's the biggest they get. And that's a dragonfly doing pretty well for itself. But it is nothing compared to Meganeura with its 2-foot wingspan. Every millipede you see under a log is related somehow to Arthropleura. Every scorpion is descended from the same lineage as Pulmonoscorpius. They're still there, they're just smaller now because the world changed and they had to adapt or die. The Carboniferous was proof that given the right setup, insects can absolutely be the dominant life form
Nightmare fuel. What the fuck is that? Like, bro, what is that?
On a planet. We just happen to live in a time where that's not the case. And honestly, that is probably for the best, because I don't know about you, but I'm fine with dragonflies staying at their current size. Enjoyed watching this video, make sure to give it a like and comment down below which is your favorite creature that we talked about today. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this, and hit the hype button so this video gets sent out to more people just like.
Facts. How do you hype it? I don't know how to hype a video, bro. My fault. Damn. Imagine being the first bug that died of old age. Oh, I thought bro said human. That would have been... Nah. There's no way. Anyway. W video.